When Shen Qingqiu walked for a few steps, waving his fan, before he discovered that the person who had been clinging so tightly to him this whole time hadn't come along, he turned around to see Luo Binghe standing in place, staring at something in a state of distraction. Curious, Shen Qingqiu asked, "Binghe, what are you looking at?" Only at this did Luo Binghe snap out of it. "Shizun, Shen Qingqiu was even more curious now. He walked back and looked in the same direction Luo Binghe was staring, only to see a lively crowd gathered before a moderately sized residence as they surrounded a couple of crimson-clad newlyweds whose faces were obscured. At present, the rowdy gathering was moving into the courtyard. The street was loud in the first place, so he hadn't noticed that a couple was holding a wedding right in front of them. 2 young maids were standing at the gates, handing out wedding candy from the baskets as their alms to passerbys. In crisp voices they called, "Spreading good fortune! Spreading good fortune!" Shen Qingqiu's first thought was classic wet blanket. Has this family been beset by some evil creature or ghost? He thought. But no matter how he looked, he couldn't find anything strange. Just as he was about to ask, he saw Luo Binghe walk over on his own. The young maids had never seen a handsome man of his caliber, and both were struck dumb as soon as they looked up, forgetting to even hand over their candy. Luo Binghe ended up taking it from their hands himself with a serene poise. After acquiring their wedding candy, Luo Binghe returned to Shen Qingqiu's side, satisfied. "Shizun, let's go." Shen Qingqiu nodded. The 2 of them walked for a while, shoulder to shoulder. Luo Binghe was still playing with those 2 round wedding candies wrapped in red paper, and he took another look back at the festively decorated residence with its streams of people flowing in and out. He still seemed to be thinking about something. "Is there something up with that residence?" Shen Qingqiu asked. Luo Binghe started. "What does Shizun mean by something's up with it?" "If there's nothing up with it, why would you pay it so much attention? You don't even like candy." A look of understanding came over Luo Binghe's face, and he smiled. "It's nothing, just sharing in good fortune." He was so earnest when he spoke that Shen Qingqiu couldn't help but smile. "This master doesn't recall you believing in such things. Have you never seen anyone get married before?" It's not that I haven't seen it. I just never imagined that sort of thing could have anything to do with myself." "You never imagined marrying a girl in the future?" Luo Binghe shook his head. Shen Qingqiu felt this was rather unscientific. "Really? Not even a bit?" No matter how you put it, Luo Binghe, the formal Luo Binghe that was a male protagonist of a stallion novel. How could he never have nursed any beautiful hopes of that kind? And with airplanes shooting towards the sky's shitty tendencies, his quote, beautiful hopes would hardly have stopped at marrying a beautiful woman. They would have been more like marrying a 3-digit number of beautiful women all at once, at minimum. Of course, Shen Qingqiu knew the current Luo Binghe wouldn't do such a thing. But how could he never even have thought about it? How could he have thought that marriage had nothing to do with him? Luo Binghe thought, then said, "I truly never imagined it before." Shen Qingqiu noticed that before. "So, you mean to say, you think such things have something to do with you now?" he teased. Unexpectedly, this time, Luo Binghe didn't reply. After that incident, over the next few nights, Shen Qingqiu didn't know if it was just him, but Luo Binghe seemed to be especially energetic. Meanwhile, his own old waist, hips, and legs were suffering even more than usual. They returned to Changqiu Mountain every 2 months to, quote, visit the family. Because of this, No one was surprised whenever they showed up again. Instead, they enthusiastically surrounded them while munching on their dragon bone cantaloupe seeds.
Eh, who is this? Chéngqīn started. Isn't this a Chéngqīn Peak Lord? You're back again! A rare guest.
It is he, said Chéngqīn.
Did you bring any local specialties from the demon realm, aside from the one next to you?
Lord Binghe clearly grew from the human realm soil. He shouldn't count as a demonic specialty either way, should he? Chéngqīn thought. Even if I did, no one would want to eat them, so I didn't bring any, he said. Suddenly, a young man walked over, dangling something in his hand. Chéngqīn called out, Little martial brother, long time no see, What is this? Little Jingge expressionlessly caught the feebly gasping thing Chéngqīn had thrown back at him and tossed it back.
A short-haired beast, he said. It's edible.
Chéngqīn chucked it at him again. I'm not eating it. I still have the one you gave me years back. It's grown enormous, and it spends all day gnawing on the bamboo on the Chéngqīn Peak. I don't want another. The two of them tossed the short-haired beast back and forth as it shrieked in midair. Martial brother, I think you should just take it, Wei Qingwei cut in. If one of them is male and the other is female and you put them together, maybe they'll be drawn to each other and won't gnaw on the bamboo anymore. But what if they're both males? Silence. In the past, when Liu Qingge walked over, Lord Binghe would have begun to emanate an icy aura and make all sorts of snide remarks, enmity on full display. But today he seemed to be in a bit of a daze, standing by Chéngqīn's side and not saying a word. Chéngqīn found this rather strange. Not only did he find it strange, everyone else found it strange too. Whenever the sect siblings from Changqiu Mountain got together, the conversation never stopped, and any little remark could get played on forever. But today, their conversation was extremely short. They usually headed off to Zuixuan Peak to have a meal together, but seemingly because of Lord Binghe's strange aura, no one brought up doing so. Before everyone scattered, Qi dragged Chéngqīn to the side and asked,
What's up with your disciple?
What do you mean, what's up?
Today, you're a disciple. Did you have an argument?
We didn't. Chéngqīn didn't show anything on his face, but his hand tightened around his fan.
Oh, then that's good. But I feel like your disciple was so odd today, like he was holding something in.
Chéngqīn felt it too. When they returned to the bamboo house, Lord Binghe was still in that strange state. Chéngqīn had just sat down on the bamboo couch when a huge crash came from the doorway. He rushed around the screen, only to see Lord Binghe sprawled on the floor, with Minfan, Ning Yingying, and the other disciples gaping at him in shock. Chéngqīn went to help Lord Binghe up. What happened? He asked. It's not. Before Lord Binghe could finish speaking, Minfan yelled, Shizun, Lord Binghe tripped over the threshold. Chéngqīn had no words. Lord Binghe glared at Minfan, and Minfan shrank back in fear. Shh, be on your way, Chéngqīn said hurriedly. Go prepare for morning reading tomorrow. As he closed the door, Lord Binghe silently sat down next to the table. Chéngqīn looked at the red dot where his forehead had smashed into the ground and sighed. What's been up with you these past few days? Lord Binghe was still silent. Sit and don't move. This master will get you a hot compress. He turned to go to the water basin, but just as he had wrung a strip of cloth, he heard another huge crash behind him. He startled and turned around only to find Lord Binghe sprawled on the floor again. Confusion written on his face and worried that Luo Binghe was too dizzy to sit or stand. Shen Qingqiu rushed over. Are you? But as soon as he reached him, Luo Binghe grabbed his arm. Shizun, marry yourself to me, won't you? Shen Qingqiu's expression cracked just a bit. Having noticed how unusual Shen Qingqiu's expression was, Luo Binghe hurriedly said, Shizun, if you don't want to marry yourself to me, I could also marry myself to you. When Shen Qingqiu didn't reply, Luo Binghe's voice went monotone, and he asked again, Shizun, are you willing to? His Adam's apple trembled more and more, and his voice began to quiver as well. Marry me? Shen Qingqiu still didn't say anything. Bit by bit, the fire in Luo Binghe's eyes dimmed. After a long time, he said in a hoarse voice, If Shizun isn't willing, I... Slow down, said Shen Qingqiu. He struggled for a while. So these past few days, you were acting so odd because you wanted to ask me this. Luo Binghe stared at him, then carefully nodded twice. Shen Qingqiu found the next few words difficult to get out of his mouth. So you're... Luo Binghe helped him finish. This disciple is proposing to Shizun. Shen Qingqiu was speechless. He sat down at the table and buried his face in his right hand. He didn't know what he should say or do. He should have found it absurd. Even though he and Luo Binghe had confirmed their relationship a long time ago, he had never imagined that Luo Binghe would actually, how should he put it, propose to him. Holy shit, he had proposed to him. This word was profoundly frightening when applied to a young man like him. And who knew how many times Luo Binghe had practiced in private just to say these few words? Not to mention how he had been so nervous he had been completely strange and abnormal, unable to even talk. He tripped over the threshold just trying to walk inside, and he'd even stuttered. But Shen Qingqiu didn't want to make fun of him at all, nor did he want to play hard to get. Yep, Shen Qingqiu was terrified to realize that the scariest part was that he was actually just a little bit happy. Luo Binghe was clearly still nervous. His throat bobbed up and down. When Shen Qingqiu removed his face from his hand, he took the chance to say, Shizun, if you don't want to, you don't need to answer my question. If you don't answer, I'll still understand what you mean. Please don't say it out loud. It doesn't matter. If you think it's too much trouble, you can just ignore me. Just pretend I was making a joke. It's fine. Shen Qingqiu smacked him across the head with his fan, furious. It's fine, my ass! Having been suddenly smacked by that fan, Luo Binghe touched his head and blinked, clearly not understanding why he'd been hit. This innocent expression made Shen Qingqiu nearly choke on anger. He had just begun to feel happy about it when this brat, in the next moment, said, It's fine, you don't need to answer, just pretend I was making a joke. That last bit in particular sent Shen Qingqiu into a rage, and he lashed out to smack him with his fan again. Is this anything to joke about? Luo Binghe quietly took the hit and whimpered, I was wrong. Of course you were wrong, and this master was just about to say yes. Luo Binghe was halfway through apologizing when he started. Shizun, he said carefully. What was that? Nothing at all, said Shen Qingqiu. Shizun. Shen Qingqiu sighed. He didn't say anything, but he motioned to Luo Binghe to come closer. As expected, Luo Binghe moved, giving his total familiarity with every movement of Shen Qingqiu's body. The mere sight of Shen Qingqiu motioning at him meant he didn't need a single verbal instruction to understand the intent. He obediently went to pour a cup of wine. Then Chéngqīn took the jar and poured himself a cup, after which he motioned Luo Binghe to take the other. 师尊, is this? Chéngqīn picked up the cup he poured himself and wound his arm around Luo Binghe's. Luo Binghe's handsome face immediately began to glow with life. His hand shook so much that he nearly dropped the cup, and his arm trembled to a frightening degree. With their arms crossed, Chéngqīn nearly spilled the wine in his own cup all over his chest. I thought, Luo Binghe stammered out. You thought you would definitely be rejected, didn't you? Chéngqīn said expressionlessly. Luo Binghe had no reply to that. So you said you didn't want to hear the answer because you thought you would definitely be rejected. A silence. I was extremely anxious. Luo Binghe looked straight into Chéngqīn's eyes. 师尊, that day, didn't you ask me if I truly hadn't imagined such things before? I really never did. You are allowed to imagine, Chéngqīn said. There was nothing wrong with fantasizing. Was fantasizing illegal now? Besides, what about the chance that your fantasies could actually be realized? When I was young, I thought that no one could want a person like me, said Luo Binghe. So I never imagined that anyone would be willing to have me. You're far off the mark, Chéngqīn replied. Later on, Luo Binghe continued, I had Shi Cun. You were clearly already by my side, but even so, I could never overcome my anxiety. I felt that you might leave me at any time. I didn't know what I should do. I wanted to become stronger, and I wanted to become better, but I still felt like it wasn't enough. I still couldn't stop myself from being afraid. Chéngqīn also looked straight into his eyes. After a while, he stroked Luo Binghe's head and sighed. Oh, Binghe, I still don't know what I should do now. Chéngqīn then said, Then just do what you want to.